Monday night, Nightly Nonsense, the night before reopening begins. I don't know about you, but it's been quite an exciting day around here with the thought that reopening, freedom, is right around the corner. Now, that corner might be 2, 4, 6 weeks in length, but reopening is around the corner. We're really excited about that. As part of Drash Ministries, we're excited to get back to being able to use our center in Faulkner and the different things that we do with the different ministries. We have greatly enjoyed Nightly Nonsense in some way, shape, or form. That will continue on. But we're looking forward to getting to actually see real people in the next few weeks and watch and listen and get to hear from people as to what it is that you learned during the last 8 weeks. Those of you who know me know that I love to ask questions. So if you're getting ready for re-entry, you can expect that if that's going to include a conversation with me, that I'm going to be asking you, what have you learned? What have you heard from God? What is it about this last 6, 7, 8 weeks that you have really found to be life-changing in nature? What is it that you found to be life-changing, maybe in a, hey, I really need to fix this in nature? So as soon as Timothy gets me the signal, which he just did, we are ready for week 6, Monday night, Nightly Nonsense. We are super thankful that you joined me. My son tells me that when I say we are super excited, that I really need to be more excited in order to use that phrase. So I'm going with, we are super thankful that you joined us tonight. Hopefully, God is going to speak to you through a challenge about reopening tonight. We finished our David and Goliath series. We're moving on. We're going to be in the book of Mark, chapter 3. Going to challenge your church thinking tonight. So probably going to step on some toes. Probably going to have you, hopefully, thinking about re-entry, what that may or may not look like for you. As always, what we do on Nightly Nonsense is we like to start off with a worship song that just kind of gets us in a right frame of mind. Hopefully, it's doing that for you. We appreciate the fact that Stephen and Melinda are helping us out with that. So without any further ado, here are Stephen and Melinda.
Is it true today that when people pray, cloudless skies will break, kings and queens will shake? Yes, it's true. I believe it. I'm living for you. Is it true today that when people pray, we'll see dead men rise, we'll see blind set free? Yes, it's true. I believe it. Living for you. I'm gonna be a history maker in this land. And I'm gonna be a speaker of truth to all mankind. And I'm gonna stand, and I'm gonna run to your arms, to your arms again. Is it true today that when people stand with the fire of God and the truth in hands, we'll see miracles, we'll see angels sing, We'll see broken hearts making history. Yes, it's true. I believe it. Living for you. Living for you. And I'm gonna be a history maker in this land. And I'm gonna be a speaker of truth to all mankind. And I'm gonna stand, and I'm gonna run to your arms, to your arms again. And I'm gonna be a history maker in this land. And I'm gonna be a speaker of truth to all mankind. And I'm gonna stand, and I'm gonna run into your arms, to your arms again, into your arms, to your arms again.
Hey, thanks, Stephen, for that song. Hope you listened to the words to that song. I'm going to be a history maker. That fits so well with what we're talking about tonight. I'm in the book of Mark, chapter 3. I want to talk to you about resetting things. And I'd really like this to be a conversation, but you and I aren't able to do that, so it's going to sound more like a sermon. But I really have more questions than I have answers. I really have more questions than I have even suggestions. But when I look at the ministry of Jesus, and we look at the beginning of Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, we look at the interaction that Jesus had at first with religious people. Now, all the books have Jesus interacting with religious people throughout them, but at the beginning of Jesus' ministry, he really attempted to work through the system that was established at that time, going to the synagogues and teaching in villages. And what happens is we find out that Jesus was coming to bring the message of the Father, which was pretty simple in nature, that this was an opportunity for a reset. Now, God, throughout the Old Testament, had several moments of reset. Probably the most famous one is Noah. But even with the people of Israel, he resets things with his people. And God is all about resetting things in yours and my life. Now, we don't get a lot of those opportunities. We don't just get an opportunity where God kind of clears the slate, clears the plate, and we get to refill it. It's one of my favorite things about going to a smorgasbord. I love the Golden Corral because you can fill your plate up with whatever it is that you want, and you get done with that plate and you get a new plate that you get to fill with whatever you want to fill it with. And that's pretty much what God is doing right here. Now, listen carefully before you start thinking I'm a heretic or I'm preaching bad things. What God says, and we know this is true, is that it's time for a new covenant. The old covenant is between between God the Father and a chosen group of people, specifically with Abraham and then his descendants. The new covenant is between God and all peoples, and it's coming through Jesus. It's going to come through his life, his death, his burial, his resurrection, and then the Great Commission that he has put you and I on. And so Jesus is coming down, and he's going to give people an opportunity for reset. Now, the problem with reset is that there's always a group of people at work, at home, at church, at play, wherever you are, there's a group of people that are so conditioned. They're so excited to what used to be that they want nothing to do with the reset. And then there's people that are so disappointed with what used to be, so frustrated with what used to be, that they're so excited about a reset, but their reset has an agenda and a plan as well. And God isn't looking at it that way. God is looking at resetting your life when it comes to being in relationship with Him and then being in relationship with other people. So I want you to look at Mark chapter 3. It's a story. We're going to start right off with verse 1. And it's a story that follows a very similar story about the Sabbath day. And it says this: on another time, Jesus went into the synagogue, and a man with a shriveled hand was there. I can't tell you how relevant this is to everyday life before March in our churches. Jesus went to a synagogue. He went to the place where people did church. Specifically, they did church with God the Father. Right? So he went to where people were representing his Father. And what does he see? A man with a shriveled up hand. He sees a man with a need of a hospital. He sees a man with a need for God. He sees a man who is not perfect in nature, needs help, needs Jesus. That represents, that's the same thing as what you and I have seen a lot of times in our churches. We walk into a place of a group of people that are representing God. And if they're representing God well, there's going to be a need for Jesus. So now the first question that I would have for you is does that sound like the place that you and I have worshiped before March? Was it a place where we walk in expecting to find a group of people that represent God, the heart of God specifically? And so therefore we are going to find people with shriveled up hands, people with imperfect lives, people with imperfect moments in time, people of all races, people of all colors, people of all kinds of different backgrounds. We're going to find them in a place where God's heart is represented. Is that what you found when you went to church before March? Is that what your church was made up of? Also, my question to you would be, did you see people with shriveled up hands? Did you see people who were in need of God the Father to do something in their life? Because if you weren't, if all you saw was people who had their life all together, you didn't see shriveled up hands, you didn't see people who were in need, well then there's a problem. There's a problem because Jesus specifically says in Luke chapter 4 who he has come to be with, who he has come to help, the mission that he has come to fulfill. Jesus tells us that it's about poor, it's about blind, it's about prisoners. Those don't sound like perfect people. So if Jesus came to help those type of people, the question is, are we finding those type of people in our churches? The places that are supposed to be representing God. Is that what you and I are finding? Because that's what Jesus found when he went into the synagogue. And then it says this: some of them were looking for a reason to accuse Jesus, so they watched him closely to see if he would heal him on the Sabbath. Listen, this is just plain soapbox. I've experienced a lot of church in my life as a pastor and as a person who's been to church since I was born, right? This whole concept, listen to that carefully. Some of them were looking for a reason to what? Accuse him. Accuse Jesus. So they were waiting to see if he was actually going to heal on the Sabbath. Now we look at that and we say, well, wait a second, Andy, you just said that people are supposed to come to church looking for healing. They're supposed to come to church with needs. Why wouldn't he heal on the Sabbath? Well, because these religious leaders got so caught up in their methodology that they forgot about the heart of what they were doing. What's the purpose what's the purpose with God's laws? What's the purpose with why God commanded certain things? What's the purpose? What's the heart behind things? And sometimes we get so lost with the purpose, we can't find it. All we can find is the methodology. Don't think I'm right about that. Go to a church and ask them why they do certain things. We've just always done it that way. And then ask them if you could change it. See what the response to that is. And you'll find that in a lot of churches, in a lot of places of worship, methodology has overtaken the heart of things. We're doing things because it's just the way we do it. We're not doing it because we know the heart of God. And so we have people who are coming to church looking to see if we're doing things right. They're coming to church looking to accuse people. They're looking to get people for doing it the wrong way. They don't come to church to celebrate communion. They come to see if we're celebrating it the right way. They don't come to listen to somebody who's bringing forth a message. They come to see whether they're bringing the message in the right way. The right worship music, the right type of worship music, the right Sunday school classes, the right Sunday school teachers, all of this stuff. We keep looking at things and we're not concerned about the heart, the offering that we're bringing God. What we're concerned about is that we're doing it the right way. What we find out here is that this is nothing new. This is people have been about this forever. Here's why. God was about people doing things the right way. Because when you're worried about doing things the right way, usually that comes with the right heart. God wants to make sure that we're just not giving him any sacrifice. So he did say, listen, you need to do it this way. These type of animals. Because he knows the heart of us and he knows what we would do is rather than give the best to God, we would give that which we didn't want. Which, by the way, happened frequently with the Jewish people. They started giving the diseased animals, the sick animals, the things that they didn't want to God, keeping the best for themselves. Again, do you see that today? Do you see that in your life? Are you the type of person that's keeping the best of what you have for yourself? I say it repeatedly. When people walk up to me and tell me that they've used the gifts and talents that God has given them all week long for themselves, and they're too tired out, or they don't want to use those gifts for God on Sunday or whatever else, whatever time you worship or throughout the week, there's a problem with that. There's a problem when you say, I teach all week, so I don't want to teach on Sunday. I do this all week. I work with books all week, so I don't want to help with the treasure. I do this and I do this and I do this and I don't want to do this on Sunday. There's a real problem because now what you've done is kept the best for yourself and you've given the least to God. Many of us aren't using our gifts for God. We're using secondary talents for God. I've learned how to do this, or I kind of like this, so this is what I'm going to do. So God walks in to his synagogue through Jesus, and he sees that they're caught up in methodology, but worse yet, some people, that they're out to get him. They're going to use the very heart of God against himself. That's a problem. When we see the broken, when we see the diseased, when we see the people with shriveled up hands in financial ruin, all of those kind of things, when we see those people, right? We see those people in our churches and we find reasons to walk away from them rather than walk to them. We frequently talk about whether or not, we would let people that were dressed unchurched, Sunday church-like, would we let them into our church and we would let them walk all the way up to the front. Now, most of us know the Sunday school answer is that we'd let them in our church. Most of us have a back pew that we would very comfortably let them sit in. But would you let somebody who was dressed inappropriately for a Sunday morning, whatever that is in your world, in your book, would you let them walk all the way up that aisle on a Sunday morning and sit in the front? Would you let them have a place of honor in the church, or would you push them to the back? That's what we're talking about. And so Jesus walks into a synagogue and he sees the very people he came to take care of. An example of the person that needs Jesus. The rest of the people need Jesus. They just don't think they need Jesus. Or the type of Jesus they need isn't the one that is actually showing up. And so he goes on and he says this. Jesus said to the man with the shriveled hand, "Stand up in front of everyone." So I want you to understand that Jesus, he sees the shriveled up hand of the man who's sitting there. He also knows the heart of the people who are stuck on methodology. And he walks into that setting. And what's he say to the man? Stand up, because I'm going to make an example of you. Hey, he didn't take him to the back and say, hey, let me hide this and I'll take care of you back here. He didn't say, hey, why don't you see me after the service and I'll take care of you. He addressed the man's needs. Listen, as a pastor, I can't tell you how important this is. People need to know their need for Jesus before they sit and listen for a 25, 35, 45-minute sermon. It's important to start off with recognizing that people have a need for Jesus. I hope that when you come to church on Sunday morning, I hope that you are coming with a need for Jesus and you're willing to stand up and say, hey, I have a need for Jesus. I hope you're not waiting to the altar call at the end, if it comes, to deal with Jesus. Gosh, I hope that you're not waiting for that. I hope that you're able to, from the very beginning, just cry out to God and say, I have a need for you. Why would you wait till the end, especially if you don't know that it's coming? No, instead, what do? We admit right from the very beginning, I have a need for Jesus. But too many of our churches, we push that aside. That's for the end of the service. And so we make it so the people have to be uncomfortable throughout an entire service when the very reason that they're there, their need for Jesus, ought to be from the very beginning, so that they can then partake in a service. They can eat of the whole meal, not just dessert at the end. That's so that we can feel good as a pastor that, man, I must have preached a great message because look at that guy just came up at the end. The truth of the matter is, if I'd asked him to come up at the beginning, he probably would have. Had nothing to do with my message. Now, sometimes it might. Sometimes God uses my message or your message or anybody's message, but sometimes people are hungry from minute one and you could say boo and they would come up. And so Jesus asked this guy, though, to stand up. Admit you have a need for Jesus. Listen, God says through Jesus, man, if you deny me in front of others, I'm going to deny you in front of my Father. But do you think God is kidding about that? Do you think Jesus was joking when he said those words? No, he wants to make sure that you and I are willing to stand up in front of people and admit that we have a need for Jesus. He didn't make this guy feel bad. He didn't make him say, oh, I don't want you to feel out of place. I don't want to hurt your feelings tonight. So let's just pretend you don't have a shriveled hand. Let's just pretend you don't have a need for Jesus. Instead, what's he say? Stand up. Admit that you have a need for Jesus. Listen, there are a few of you listening tonight that are in this exact same boat. You think that people don't know that you're going through something right now and that you have a need for Jesus. And if you just pretend everything's okay, it's all going to be okay, and then you know what? You miss out on Jesus, and you miss out on other people getting to come up alongside you, and other people getting to help you. So it's way better to just say, man, I just have a need for Jesus, than it is to pretend that you don't have a need. But notice what Jesus asked this guy. Stand up. Admit you have a need for me. And then that's going to bring about a movement of the Holy Spirit, a movement of God. Do you know when movements of God happen? We've been praying and praying for a revival in this area. Most of us feel that we're on the edge of it. Some people believe that it's happening right now with the internet. But we believe that we're on the edge of revival. And you know when that's going to happen? You know when revival is going to break forth in Lakeview and in Jamestown and in DeWittville and in all of the area around us? You know when that's going to happen? When somebody's brave enough to stand up and say, I need Jesus. And then follow it up by, not only do I need Jesus, I want Jesus. And I'm not leaving this building. I'm not leaving this place until I can get Jesus. Jesus resetting. Healings don't happen on Sundays. They don't happen on the Sabbath, which is actually the Friday night to Saturday. They don't happen here. Jesus coming and said, we're resetting things. We're going to do things differently. Then Jesus asked them, which is lawful on the Sabbath, to do good or to do evil, to save life or to kill? But they remained silent. No brainer. What's better to do here? What's the heart of God is what he's asking. Do you know the heart of God? Do you know the heart of God right now? Do you know the heart of God is this question right here? What's lawful? What is of God? Is it lawful on the Sabbath to do good or do evil, to save life or to kill? What's the heart of God? Do you know the heart of God? When you go to church on Sunday mornings, when you're with God's people, what's the heart of God? Do you know it? Is it better to heal and to take care of people? Or is it better to make them live under the law, to wait till the end of the service, to do what's the heart of God? You know, if you and I went to church, if we went to church and we asked that question, what's the heart of God this morning? What's God trying to do? What's God want to do? Imagine the place that would be different. Imagine a place that would be significantly different. God's giving us an opportunity starting tomorrow to start thinking about reset. What happens when we walk back into our churches? What happens when we open things back up? Are we going to have it be the heart of God, or are we going to be about methodology? Because I'd like to propose to you that in a lot of churches, before March, there's a lot more methodology. This is the way we do things here, than the heart of God. Understand this. Sometimes those two things, they match up perfectly. The way we do things is the heart of God because we're seeking. But sometimes those two things are far away, like they are right now. And guess what happens to the people? They remain silent. They see the heart of God and they remain silent. It's one of the things that I can't stand and tell people all the time. We celebrate poorly in church because we don't know whether we should be celebrating. We don't know how to celebrate. And we don't want to celebrate prematurely. Oh, this person came to know the Lord, and we throw a party. And then 2 days later we find out that, they slipped back. And then we feel like we're a failure, that somehow we got it wrong. I don't want to celebrate healing because if I claim this person got healed and then 2 days later I figure out the cancer's come back, then man, I said it wrong. We did it wrong. We represented wrong. So we wait. We wait for end results because we're deathly afraid to celebrate the steps, the little things that they get. The little things that people get right. The moments of victory that encourage them on to the next moment of victory, that encourage them on to the next moment of victory. Well, we won't celebrate those because we are so afraid that they're not going to get complete victory, which, by the way, is defined by us. So what do? Man, we remain silent. Do you know how many times I've watched somebody post a praise report? Do you know how many times I've watched somebody say something in praise in church on a Sunday to little or no response? But man, you put on a, hey, I've got this prayer request, or you put on a political view, or you put on that, hey, my horse is suddenly pink. And all of a sudden, you've got tons and tons of responses. Everybody has something to say about the pink horse. Everybody has something to say about your new puppy. But when you say, hey, man, God is doing tremendous things in my life. Man, look at this verse. Look at the power in this verse. People are silent. They remain silent. Listen, I want you to think about the times on Facebook in the last couple months that you've been silent. What are the posts that you've read that you haven't liked? What are the posts that you've read that you wouldn't attach your name to? Were they Christian in nature? Were they somebody's verse? Somebody challenging other people? Or did you put your name to things that aren't heavenly in nature? Did you put your name to things that aren't eternal in nature? But you won't put your name to things that are eternal in nature? Let me go on. It says this. He looked around at them in anger and deeply distressed at their stubborn hearts. He said to the man, stretch out your hand. Do you see the reaction of Jesus? Righteous anger, deeply distressed at the quietness, deeply distressed at the methodology, deeply distressed that they didn't know the heart of God, that they didn't get that's why Jesus was there. Deeply distressed. Pretty easy question. So Jesus walks into your home tonight. Is he deeply distressed? Is he upset about the stubbornness in your house? The fact that you just won't admit you have a need for Jesus? You won't allow other people to come up alongside you because you think that you're not as bad off as they are? Or you think that you've got it all together and you need people to think you got it all together? I had a great conversation today with somebody who's contemplating going into the ministry, and their number one concern is this whole idea of having my house in order. What's that look like? What's it look like to have my house in order? Does it have to be perfect? I love the fact that I talked to another friend who repeatedly says to me that they expect their pastor to be human. They expect their pastor to be real. So again, we look at things and we say, is God walking into your house? Is he looking at what you're selling and is he buying it? Is he deeply distressed and is he frustrated with the stubbornness of your heart? You just simply won't do what you're called to do. You won't do because you won't let yourself be. And you won't do until you know everything about whatever it is that God has called, and then it's all going to be okay. And you don't want to take any nosedives, and you don't want to do any face plants, and you don't want to do because, man, that might look bad to other people. I don't want to mess it up. I don't want to get it wrong. Listen, Peter led 3,000 people to the Lord. That's a pretty good day. At the same time, Jesus looked right at him and said, get away from me, Satan. You're my enemy. Like Jesus says there are going to be times when you're going to get it and times where you don't get it. But what we don't want is for God to look at us and get a stubbornness, see a stubbornness of us and be deeply distressed. We have a chance for a reset in the next few weeks. A chance to do things differently. And it might look very similar in nature, but the heart could be totally different. That's the greatest thing about a heart transplant, right? You got a person who looks the same, got a brand new heart to them. And we can argue the semantics about whether or not it's really a new heart or not, but it's a new heart to the person who got it. And maybe their countenance looks different. And it changes, the facial expressions and things like that. But it's a new heart, same person. Maybe that's what God is looking for, a reset. Maybe revival comes because you and I just say, you know what we really need to change is we need to get a heart of God. We need to quit making excuses, quit hiding behind our methodology, and we need to get a heart for God. Let me finish this up. It says this, stretch out your hand. He stretched it out and his hand was completely restored. Jesus came and did what Jesus said that he was going to come and do. He healed. But the reaction was not euphoric. It's not people standing up and cheering. It's not people saying, oh, wow, this is fantastic. Instead, here's the reaction. Then the Pharisees went out and began to plot with the Herodians how they might kill Jesus. Listen, I wish that this was a foreign concept in my experience at church, but it's not. Do you know that there are people who have left church services planning and plotting to destroy the reputation of somebody? Planning and plotting with their hands, that they prayed, They sang the wrong worship song, sang the wrong hymn, they sang it in the wrong tempo, they said the wrong words. You hear the pastor make that mistake, and he just couldn't get over his own tongue, and it was awful. And do you know that he said this, and then he said this, and then we had people whose skirts were too short, pants were too long, makeup was too, on and on and on and on. And so we leave church plotting to destroy people, plotting for division. That's not the heart of God. The heart of God isn't having you and I leaving church so upset that we're plotting how we can get rid of the pastor, how we can get rid of the worship leader, how we can get rid of the Sunday school teacher, how we can get rid of anybody. That's not the heart of God. So here's the deal. You and I, we've got a chance. Reset. People are opening up their stores, opening up their restaurants, opening up their businesses, opening up their homes. You got a chance for a reset. Do you know nobody probably has been in your home for a good 6-8 weeks out of the ordinary, out of your kids? You have a chance to reset your home. You have a chance to do things different. You can come out of this totally different. Arms open wide for people with the heart of God. You just start bringing people in, start ministering to them, out doing stuff. They're not getting ready for bed in the spring and the summer. They're out boating, they're out canoeing, they're out golfing, and they're out doing lots of stuff. You have a chance for a reset. So you're going to go back to work. You have a chance for a reset. New persona, new attitude, new ideas, new work ethic. You can do it. Things that God has asked us to do. You can also reset at church. We have a chance to get back to the heart of God. Are we really representing Jesus? Are we just representing a Jesus that we've made up because that Jesus will get us where we want to go, will get us what we want to do? I cannot encourage you enough in the next few days, the next few weeks, to just think about, what does it mean to reset? What does it mean to reestablish church? What's it going to look like? You have a chance, once in a lifetime, most likely, chance to do that, be a part of that, to find a place that's doing that. Take advantage of that. Wrap your arms around that. You don't want a Jesus who's greatly distressed about our stubbornness, the fact that we won't give up methodology. Sometimes methodology that's not working, listen, is ready to heal you. Methodology is not going to do it. Only Jesus. So, I hope that you took my little sermon tonight and that you were encouraged to do that. I hope that you do that. Let me pray. Father God, we thank you for this time. I thank you for your word. I thank you for how it speaks. I thank you for how it challenges us. And Lord, I am so grateful personally for resets, corporately for resets. Lord, that you allow us to take a step back and then re-enter in a better way. Lord, I pray that you give us the courage to discard, change, keep the methodology that lines up with your heart. Lord, get rid of it if it doesn't. Pray for each one who's listening. Pray a blessing upon them. In your name, amen. Thanks for listening. Super grateful for you tonight.